This month, we dive into one of the most debated topics in nephrology, that is dialyzer reuse. And for that purpose, we have two amazing speakers today. Is Dr. Hafsah Hachad. She's a nephrologist from Tenon Hospital in Paris, and also works in University of Technology of Compiègne, and also Abass Fehintola, who is a PhD candidate at Trinity College Dublin, and his research is focused on advancing sustainability in healthcare, particularly in kidney care. So together, their work spans life cycle assessment, socio-technical analysis, and policy development to advance eco-responsible nephrology practices. So they are both going to share this talk today, and they will again talk about dialyzer reuse. So Hafsah and Abass, thank you very much for joining this session today, and whenever you want, you can begin with the talk, and we will leave the questions for the end. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Marta, for the invite, and thanks everybody for being here. I will start, and then Abass will continue. If it's okay for you, Abass, or if you want to say some words before we start.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much, Hafsah, and thank you, Mara, for the invite and the introduction. And hello to everyone. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. So as Marta was saying, we will try to dig into this very complex subject that is reusing dialyzer in our dialysis activity. And to do so, we will try to have an analysis that is really that tackles very complementary issues regarding this problematic. So just to start, maybe some really rapid, quick word of context. As you all know, we are in the midst of a big environmental crisis, climate change being one of those crises. And it's not only an environmental problem, it's also and most and for all a health problem, because climate change is a risk factor for kidney disease. The other problem is that this will bring a growing demand for healthcare, and healthcare system as we constructed it in our countries is really dependent on fossil fuels, and this dependence also worsened the ecological crisis. So we're kind of in the middle of a vicious circle, which can be seen as the paradox of modern medicine, since we pledge for primum non nocere, so first do no harm, and since we are in this vicious crisis circle, it seems really difficult to uphold to this primum non nocere. So what can we do as medical professionals to go forward? Maybe reuse is one of the solutions that has to be tackled. And first, I will present some elements of rationale behind the approach. So a lot of work has been done and is being published on the environmental footprint of our dialysis activity. Here I present some of the results of my thesis that are unpublished for now, and what they show is that we dialysis have a big carbon footprint. We are around between 6 and 10 ton of CO2 equivalent per patient and per year. And what is really important here is that nearly 50% of the carbon footprint from procurements come from medical device. And as you see, almost 40% of the carbon footprint comes from procurement that you can see here in yellow. And so that brings us into looking in more details into the life cycle analysis of hemodialyzer, and it's also some results that have from my thesis that are unpublished, where we tried actually to modelize the carbon footprint of a dialyzer and to see exactly where are the hotspots for this environmental impact. And as we see here, we accounted for approximately 7 kilo of CO2 equivalent per production for a dialyzer, and the majority of the impact is in the production of the material. Sorry, the figure is in French. I didn't have time to translate it. I forgot to translate it. But in the blue, you have the material, so the extraction of raw materials for the dialyzer production, and all the processes that are used to manufacture the dialyzer. So it makes even more sense when we see where the hotspots of the carbon footprint are to advocate for dialysis reuse. And it's not only a question of mitigation of our impact, but it's also a question of sovereignty and also of resilience, because as you can see in the graph that is in the right, that shows actually healthcare systems dependency to imports of fossil fuel. Europe is 100% dependent of the importation of fossil fuels, and the dialyzers are made on of plastic, which is a derivative of the petrochemical industry. So why reuse can be a response to the challenge of our times. This is an extract from an article that has been published in a legal healthcare review in France, and they summarize actually quite good the problematic. As they say, a paradoxical notion for sure single reuse is emerging as one of the solutions to the challenges of one, the shortage of resource, the prohibitive carbon cost of purchasing drugs and medical devices, and obviously scarcity also. And this is more relevant when we are coming to dialyzers because of the frequency and the chronic nature of the treatment, because of the growing population of dialysis patients, the economic cost of the technique's dependency on the petrochemical industry, and as we just demonstrated, the environmental cost of manufacturing and end-of-life management. And when we think that we are using approximately 1 to 2 million dialyzers per day globally, you get a glimpse of the major problematic that we are tackling now. We're not talking of something that is completely new and that we are proposing out of the blue. Actually, reuse of dialyzer is a regulated practice because we have like recommendations from the hemodialysis adequacy group that were published in 2006, and we have more recent recommendation from the American National Standard from 2020 who edict all the regulation regarding how to reprocess a hemodialyzer for patients' safety. And it's still a common and safe practice in a lot of countries, specifically in Latin America and also in several resource limited countries that still are using this technique for essentially economical reasons. And regarding the question of the safety, actually there have been a lot of publication, and I'm just showing one of the most recent that did a review of the literature and conclude that from collective analysis, all reprocessing protocols used nowadays result in comparable clinical outcome comparing to the single-use strategy, at the condition that it is done by respecting actually the IME recommendations. So given all this, we will try to dig in a specific reuse system, that is the ClearFlux system, which is a new system with a specific technology to reprocess a dialyzer that has been produced and by the Novaflux company in the US. So the ClearFlux reprocessing system is indicated for the reprocessing of the polysulfone-based high-flux dialyzers for reuse pre-processing and assignment to patient for first use. So it's one dialyzer for one patient that is used again and again. And so it's completely automatized, and use a specific technology with a two-phase flow that associates liquid and gas to completely remove the biological contaminants and highly adhering substance in the membrane that causes the most problems that are associated with reuse. And so the system has been approved by the FDA and has been released on the USA market in 2010. And so you have here a picture of the system to see what it looks like, and it's kind of the size of a microwave, and you have a lot of other component that comes with it to make it work as a whole. And so the steps used in the reprocessing hemodialyzers with the ClearFlux system include the pre-cleaning that use osmosis water and disinfectant. Then you have the cleaning by backflush and backfiltration that use this specific two-phase flow technology. As you can see, it cleans the membrane with the reverse ultrafiltration of pressurized cleaning liquid from the dialysate side of the dialyzer, and while simultaneously supplying hyper pressured air to the blood side. And this generates a two-phase mixture in situ that completely remove all the deposit of protein and the clots. And so we have after this a rinsing phase, a volume and leak testing to make sure that the hemodialyzer is still in working. And after this, you have a disinfection with the dialyzer in accordance with the AME recommendation with the disinfectant based on periacetic acid. And here you can see the reprocessing in practice. So we have the business as usual. When you take a new dialyzer, you store it, then you use it on the single patient, and then you have end of life after one use. And with the ClearFlux system, you have a first pre-processing and patient assigning that lasts about 4 minutes. Then you have to store it for minimum 11 hours before using it for the first time on the patient during a dialysis session. And so you can store it at ambient temperature, and then you use it during the dialysis session. You can wait until 48 hours by in a fridge, before doing the reprocessing, and then you have the reprocessing that lasts 15 minutes. And you can do this 40 times. This is why what is advised by the manufacturer. And so we can go further into details of into the reprocessing if you are interested. And so we tried in this actually to put together a cross-sectional study on the relevance of reuse using the ClearFlux machine, with a health risk analysis, a comparative life cycle analysis for single use versus reuse, a socio-technical study, an ethical reflection, an economic analysis, and addressing the funding issues, and also trying to look deeper into the regulatory issues. We won't be presenting all the results because there are a lot of things that are still ongoing, but we will dig deeper into the health risk analysis, the environmental analysis, and also the regulatory issues, and we could discuss after the other elements if you want. So quickly, regarding the risk analysis, actually the Scientific Committee on Emerging and Newly Identified Health Risk identified 3 significant risks to patient safety that may result from a reprocessing procedure. You have the degradation of the medical device's performance, the persistence of a chemical contamination from the disinfection process, and the persistence of a microbiological contamination from inadequate disinfection. Regarding the degradation of the medical device's performance, in vitro studies have been conducted by Novaflux to demonstrate that there is no significant decline in the membrane's purification's ability up to 40 uses. And this has been confirmed for the total cell volume, the clearance of small and medium molecules, the hydraulic permeability, permeability of the membrane, and albumin leakage. And the system has been used for 3 years in daily dialysis facilities, and no problems with the safety of patients have been reported. Regarding the persistence of a chemical contamination, the effectiveness of the rinsing process has to be confirmed by a test using reactive strips that verifies the absence of periacetic acid residues after each rinsing. And moreover, actually, periacetic acid is easily broken down into degradation products like water and acetic acid, that is kind of the vinegar, and that are really minimally harmful and mildly irritating. Regarding the persistence of the microbiological contamination, as I was saying, no problem has been reported by the clear flux, by the use of clear flux in the US. And so all this data must be revalidated actually independently of the manufacturer using a robust and reproducible scientific methodology, and also to adapt them, to transpose them to the European context, because we have here only single-use dialyzers available, and all the tests that have been done with the clear flux were done on dialyzers that were labeled reusable by the manufacturer. And we have to test this under experimental conditions that replicate local dialysis practices in Europe, including HDF. And this is a work that will be done in the next month in Utrecht, in the Netherlands, and also here in France.
Okay, thank you, Hafsah. So I will be making the discussion on the comparative life cycle assessment of single-use versus reuse. For people that don't know what life cycle assessment is, the systematic method for evaluating the environmental impacts of a product, process, or service throughout its life cycle. So mainly it starts from resource extraction, and then after that we do some processing of this material, and then there will be the manufacturing, then the distribution, the use phase of that material, and the end of life of that material. So life cycle assessments help us to quantify and evaluate the environmental impact of such a product throughout the entire life cycle. So one of the key impact categories that we want to look at in this comparative analysis is the resource use, which is mainly the fossil fuels, the climate change, the greenhouse gas emission as a result of the product, and then we have the ecotoxicity of fresh water, which is the effect of the spillage of the water on the environment. And then the water usage here is what encompasses the water footprint that is deprived as a result of our product or process. Next slide. So here we talk about the system boundary of the LCA single use and the reuse. The single use dialyzer treatment flow, we looked at the dialyzer manufacturing and sterilization of the dialyzer. So also the supply chain of transporting this dialyzer to the dialysis center. Also, we looked at the dialyzer priming and also the waste of this dialyzer after a single use. And then we compare this against the using of clear flux device, where we also look at the dialyzer manufacturing and sterilization, the supply chain to the hospital. And then we looked at the clear flux system as well, from the clear flux machine to the other components of the clear flux. And then we also look at the dialyzer priming and the waste. And can we go to the system description? Yeah, so here we make a comparative analysis of looking at the dialysis facility, where we have a large clinic with about 90 patients per week. So there will be 45 patients on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and another 45 patients on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday with 3 shifts. And then there will be a dialyzer in use per patient. It's an on-site processing batch process. And then there will be 3 clear flux machines on the site. And then we use location here as the UMCU in the Netherlands. And then the dialyzer that we used, it's an high-flux dialyzer of Polyflux 21H, which is made by Gambro Baxter in Germany. The distribution center is in Belgium. And then we use the membrane of polyamics and PVP, single use. And then the sterilization is a steam sterilization, which is an inside out. We have the material mass with losses at about 900 grams, and the weight of packaging is about 233 ratio 37 gram. Next. So here we have the flowchart of the scenarios and the process included in the study. So we have the dialyzer manufacturing. So we take a look at the raw material extraction for the dialyzer manufacturing, the transportation of this raw material, the production, sterilization, transportation to the final user. And then we also look at the dialyzer usage per session, which is mainly done automated itself by the ClearFlux machine, and then the end of use after 40 reuse. Okay, that one's was a single scenario. And then for the reuse scenario, we have this flowchart, which shows the dialyzer manufacturing as well. And then we have the priming for one session. And then we continue with the dialyzer batch reprocessing, where we have the reprocessing, we have the reuse, where we process the material with different type of cleaning, and we have cleaning, we have the strip test, and then we'll be able to reuse the dialyzer after 40 reuse, and then to go to its end of life after 40 reuse. And then we have the ClearFlux system as well. We looked at the flow chart of this ClearFlux system, where we have the ClearFlux production, then we have the daily operation and the calibration of this ClearFlux system, which is done daily. And then we have the weekly operation, so where we check up on the components of the ClearFlux device. And then we have this maintenance and follow-up, which could occur maybe twice a year or once a year. And then after 7 years, that's like the end of life of ClearFlux system. So here we have the results of the dialysis using ClearFlux and single-use dialyzer. In the first part of the graph, we have the global warming potential result of the single-use versus the ClearFlux, and then the single-use gives about 20% of the total emission, which is about 5.3 kilograms CO2 equivalent. And then for the single use, we have about 80%, which is about 13.5 kilogram CO2 equivalent. And then also for the ecotoxicity of fresh water, we have about 10%, which is 26.5 for the ClearFlux ecotoxicity. And then we have about 90%, which is about 200 CTU for the single-use dialysis session. Also, we have the same for the energy resources, which is non-renewable energy that we are using as a result of this process. Here we have 85.6, which is about 30%, or which is a megajoule net calorific value for using ClearFlux device. And then for a single use, we use about 191.6 megajoule and its calorific value for using a single use. And it's quite the same scenario when we are looking at the water footprint, which gives us about 1.5 and 20% for cubic meter water equivalent deprived as a result of using dialysis with ClearFlux. And single-use dialysis session, it's about 5.3 cubic meter. So we can see, so further, we try to make more breakdown of this result. And here we can see that most of our our global warming potential emission is coming from the dialyzer, the polyflux dialyzer, which is about 90% of the whole emission. And also we see that, for example, we have the ClearFlux system and the staff transport, which we allocated as a result of having a special staff that will be in charge of the ClearFlux. And then we also put the electricity usage of the ClearFlux system. Although we both have priming for both of these processes, for the priming of ClearFlux devices, we have a little bit more of global warming potential, because as a result of additional product that is being used to reprocess the dialyzer and make it ready for use. And then we, at the end of the day, when we put up the total, it's still significantly lower than the single use, which is about 30%, and we have a difference of about 59% when we use ClearFlux compared to single use. And here we also try to take a look at the breakdown of the polyflux dialyzer to see where we have most of the global warming potential, where it's coming from. And we can see that most of the emission is coming from the production of this ClearFlux, of this polyflux, and then which is as a result of different kind of chemicals that is used in the production. For example, there's a lot of polyethylene, polycarbonate compound and ethylene production. And then for the other highest contributor is the waste of this dialyzer, because it's basically incinerated, and because of that there will be carbon emissions. And then we also have global warming potential result that is coming from energy, which is mainly also from the production of the dialyzer, and there are minimal that is coming from packaging and transportation of this dialyzer. Here we take a look at the water footprint result of the ClearFlux versus single use as well, and the result is also quite similar to the global warming potential, where at the end of the day we have a higher results for the single use compared to ClearFlux, which gives a differential of about 70%. And then we also take a look at the energy resources. These are the energy that we bond throughout the process. So from the priming to the polyflux to ClearFlux system and the transport, and as well the result is also quite similar to the two previous two previous environmental impact that we take a look at. So at the end of the day, we are able to make a quantitative assessment that shows that ClearFlux reusability at 40 reuse is more environmental friendly compared to single use reuse. Thank you. So.
Thank you, Abass. I will just go quickly into regulatory issues, and we can go deeper in the Q&A. So hemodialyzers and the ClearFlux system, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna talk about like the European the EU context, sorry. And so the hemodialyzers and the ClearFlux are Class 2B medical devices, and so their marketing and their use are governed by the regulation 2017-745 of April 2017 concerning medical devices, and which is called the MDR. And in accordance with this regulation, actually, if we would like to introduce reuse of hemodialyzers reprocessed by the ClearFlux system, it would require actually two steps And the first of them would be to get the CE marking for the ClearFlux system and its chemical solution. So it's a whole process that the manufacturer has to go through to prove that there is a conformity regarding to a lot of norms that can be ISO, that can be the European Committee for Standardization, or NF, for example, in France, to prove that the requirements that are stated in the MDR are actually met by the ClearFlux system, and this could take several months or years before it can be applied. And the second thing actually is, are we following the application of the MDR? And there is two ways to look at it. If we stick to the dialyzers that are today available on the European market, which are all single-use dialyzers, we should apply actually the Article 17 of the MDR for the reprocessing and reuse of single dialyzers. And so this article says and states that countries' national law has to say it's okay, it's permitted to apply this Article 17 and make possible the single-use device reprocessing on their territory. And today, only a few countries in the European Union have accepted actually to make it possible to apply this Article 17. And the other way to look at it is to say, okay, if the dialyzers are not single-use, we need to place on the European market dialyzers labeled as reusable by the manufacturer. For example, the ones that are in the US market that has already been used with the ClearFlux system, and then you are already complying with the MDR and the requirements regarding the use and the information supplied for the device by the manufacturer are stated in the chapter 3 of the annex annex 1. And for example, here is an example of the Polyflex Air Dialyzer that we presented in our study and that was tested with the ClearFlux system. And as you can see in the data sheet, actually, the manufacturers give us the number of times it can be reused. It gives us also the recommendation that we have to apply with, and exactly what we have to, the steps we have to go through to have a good reconditioning. So we have a lot of other things we could dive in the Q&A, but we are still working on a socio-technical study to see what is the reconfiguration that would happen if we introduce a new dialyzer reuse system within the organization of a hemodialysis facility, and what would be the conditions for successful implementation. Regarding the ethical reflection, we could ask how patients would be informed and how would their consent be obtained, and how can we assure an equitable access to care. And also there is a big question regarding responsibility, so how this responsibility should be allocated and the situation clarified for each of the stakeholders involved, so the manufacturer, the pharmacist, the nurse, the nephrologist, etc. And of course there is the question of the money, and we need for this an economic analysis to make sure that to demonstrate actually long-term cost effectiveness, to reassure the stakeholders, and what adaptation of the current funding model between country in the different countries could help the widespread adoption of reuse. And so just a few words of conclusion. So I hope we convinced you that reuse of hemodialyzers appears to be a relevant solution in the context of the ecological emergency, which compels us actually to develop more sustainable and resilient healthcare practices. However, much remains to be done before this practice can be reintroduced into routine care. And we can state a lot of things, but to summarize, actually, we need to conduct further research on issues of health, safety, ethics, and financing. We need for some countries to amend the regulatory framework to allow Article 17. This is the case, for example, in France. And if you have information about the UK context, I would be happy to discuss them. I'm sorry I didn't have time to go deeper into those regulatory specificities. We have to encourage actually industry stakeholders to engage in this process. And so the big elephant in the room is that what economic model would support actually this transition from single use to reuse, and gradually reorganize healthcare structures to shift from a linear model to a more circular use of resources. And this is not something that is done from one day to the other. So we need to change our paradigm and to make, I'm sorry, it's still in French, but to make the new world come true, actually, to be able to respond to the ecological emergency we are in as doctors and as healthcare professionals. Thank you. I hope it's not a bit too long.
And it was absolutely perfect. Brilliant presentations, both Hafsah and Abass. Thank you so much for, I see some people clapping already. So for me, it was absolutely, as I say, amazing. So I'm just gonna quickly check if we have some questions in the chat. But I think the question that was there, that if about Suzanne, has Clear Flux received EMA approval? You have already answered to that. But maybe to complement this question, Hafsah, I will ask you, how long, for example, in France, that you don't have this Article 17 approved? Can you maybe guess, for those countries not having it and for those countries having it, how long will it take to realistically implement the Clear Flux system?
I'm not a specialist of the law, but for example, in France, we need to change actually our national legal framework. So it depends on the politics that are in charge and how this question pop up as an important one. But for example, we have an experimentation that has been pushed by the cardiologist here in France to say, okay, we understand that you have some fears about reuse as stakeholders, as politics, etc., and to just pass a law that could make it possible could be too quick regarding the context, but they pushed actually for an experimentation regarding the electrophysiology materials to be reused and to be sold to professional manufacturers, and then sold bought back by the hospital for reuse. But this was voted in the 2023 French public system financing law, and we still are waiting for the experimentation to set up, and we will wait 1 year or two more for the results. So it takes time, actually, and then after this you have to change all the regulatory framework. So you have this, and then you have actually the CE marking that could take from 2 to 3 years, depending on all the documents that can be furnished by the manufacturer. So it's a long way, but it's such a change of paradigm, and it's so a rupture with what we know, actually, that it's okay if it takes time, because we have to do it well. So we just don't throw the solution out because we did things too quickly or in a hurry.
Totally agree. I think we have some question. Hello, Gareth. Thank you very much and welcome.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for that fantastic presentation. It's something I've been looking at for a number of years now, and it really distilled it. And I think most renal professionals know that the products that are sold for reuse are exactly the same as the products that are sold single use. They just have a different label on it. I wonder if we're going to meet much resistance from the producers. But no, brilliant presentation, really well done. And I'd love to see your data. That'd be fantastic. I find it really interesting. So thank you very much.
We are writing a paper for publication.
Professor Van Holder, thank you very much for joining. I think you're mute, Professor Van Holder. You're mute.
That prevented you to hear that I said good morning instead of good afternoon. Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. Was very very clear. I have one question. It's actually also about the regulation. So as far as I understood, it has a CE label. But as you may know, EMA has made its regulations more severe, and there are several products for cardiologic use and also for kidney nephrology that do not no more comply, and there has been quite a lot of reaction in the cardiologic field and also in the pediatric nephrologic field to the European Commission, because they made it impossible to treat a number of life-threatening circumstances. So I don't know in how far these new regulations affect the application of this product also on the European market, because I think the problem with the new regulations is especially that you have to test in quite large populations before it is safe. So in this sense, probably the product has already been evaluated, but I would like to hear your opinion about that. There is some noise of people who are talking through the microphone. Yeah, okay, that's all right. Now I listen to you.
So no, the ClearFlex system itself has been approved by the FDA in the US, but it has not. It doesn't have the EU marking for marketing and use in the EU. So this will be a whole piece of work. And the other, so this is one of the problems, and the other one is, okay, we have single-use dialyzers, so we would have to, as you say, demonstrate that reusing with single-use dialyzers is okay regarding safety of patients, mostly, and that once we do this, we can apply the Article 17 in the countries that allows it. And the other thing would be if we do not want to wait for the regulation, the national regulations to apply, to make it possible to apply Article 17, because I'm saying like this, it seems really easy, but application of Article 17 itself is a whole other problem. So because you have a lot of things you have to comply with, and you have also to have notified bodies that say it's okay, the process you are putting together in your facility makes it okay to do reuse, but those notified body, actually there are not enough of them to work on all the subject, because they are also the notified body that gives the go for the EU, the CE marking. So they have like kind of priorities, and it's when you go into the reality of the things, it's a little bit more complicated than it seems. And so one of the other options would be to get CE marking for reusable dialyzers. And so this would facilitate our work, because we would have the equivalent of the American data, of the US data that are in clinic. So it's not only in vitro, it's also in vivo data that could come and back up our argumentary. And also we could completely not take into account this Article 17, and it's something that is already done in the European context. But this would mean that it will only depend on the willing of the manufacturers to put back those kind of dialyzers onto the market.
And that is, of course, a bit against their market reasoning. But that, so exactly. If the rules have become more severe, and as far as I understand, it's that you need more data to prove effect and safety. Do you think that this will be an additional obstacle to what you are already foreseeing, or does it not matter?
I could not really answer because I don't know the subtleties of the differences exactly of what was asked and what is asked now. I think it should. If we agree that it's an interesting topic, we could work with people that are specialists and used to put together those kind of files and documentation and see exactly what we have to demonstrate to make it sure that our case has a chance actually to win. But it's also kind of what is actually the precautionary principle today. If we look at 20-30 years ago, it was like, okay, we need to make it sure that everything is safe regarding the infectious disease problematics, etc. But we don't have actually problems with the infectious risk when we do the reconditioning well. Our problem actually is the ecological crisis and is the scarcity of the resources. So we can kind of move the question of the precautionary principle into those questions. And so maybe this at some point should raise awareness on, okay, so if we want to keep dialyzing patients actually and not enter a world where we have to choose if it's going to be Mr. or Mrs. It's not today, but we are talking about 30, 40, 50 years ago. But to change a healthcare system, actually, it's not done on a week. So we have to think about this really early. And so this question of precautionary principle, I think, should be on the front of the argumentary and of the advocacy.
Thank you very much. We have a comment from Professor Davenport. I don't know if you want to do it yourself, but he's saying, asking, when calculating the carbon footprint for reuse, then must centers store dialyzers cold and require additional storage capacity? Don't know if you can answer to this comment. It's in the chat. Or Professor Davenport, would you like it to explain to them? I think you're connected, but I don't know if you can.
Okay,
Thank you.
So when I've contacted colleagues around the world who do reuse, then obviously they tend to store the dialyzers in a cold facility. So usually around about 5 degrees, typical sort of fridge type temperature. So that requires an area to actually store the dialyzers, because the biggest risk is that dialyzer is given to the wrong patient. That's where the biggest risk actually is. Mm-hmm. So it's to do with the labeling of the dialyzers and the storage and making sure that the dialyzer goes back to the same individual person. So that's I think the biggest risk associated with it.
So,
Abass, if you want to go, or?
Yeah, I don't really think if that's a question, but yeah, I felt it's a comment. But yeah, the biggest risk is wrong assigning, but I don't think that will be the case, because mainly before the start of reuse, the dialyzer is labeled and assigned to a single patient, and then we also account for staff that is responsible for the clear flux device and for putting the dialyzer at the proper place and putting the assigning and the reprocessing. So there's staff that is responsible for maintaining and managing all this dialyzer. So yeah, I don't think we could encounter that mistake if we have people that are dedicated to their job.
And if I may just add regarding the concern of the storage capacity, actually the dialyzer can be stored at ambient room temperature once it has been reconditioned. So this is the originality of the ClearFlux system, is that the only moment when you have to be in a refrigerated setting is the moment between the disconnection of the dialyzer from the patients after the dialysis session and the moment you actually do the reconditioning. So it's if you do it directly after, you don't need. If in the organization of the facility you decide to do direct reconditioning, you don't need actually those kind of spaces. If you decide to do batch reprocessing, and that's what we showed here, and this is done that you wait for the end of the session to do the reprocessing. So for example, if it's in the morning, you wait for the patients of the afternoon to be in dialysis to do the reprocessing of the dialyzer of the morning, and in this lapse of time you need actually a fridge. Yeah, but it's kind of you can manage actually in terms of space.
Gareth?
Yeah, I'm working in dialysis units where we do, 50 people, 3 shifts a day. I don't like the idea of relying on humans to do things right. That has serious potential flaws. I think we need some technology in using QR codes and scanners so that you have to confirm with the dialysis machine that the right dialyzer is used for the right patient. I would think that would be a sensible way to take it when you go on a bigger scale. It'll work in smaller units, but
yeah. But it's included in the system. Actually, you have the system of assigning and recognition of the dialyzer is an automated one with the a QR code, a barcode actually. So you have a bar scanner, and in the system, each dialyzer has a series number and goes with a patient. So this is automated. Of course, you have at the end the possibility of human error, because you can each time take the wrong dialyzer and put it on the wrong patient. But this is what will be important to completely have circuits that are validated with security and quality management processes. Exactly. It's similar to the process for blood projects. At some point, you have to trust people and rely on their will to do their job.
Exactly. Frances?
Hi. Yeah, I just wondered what your thoughts are about a business model that will work, because it feels like the biggest barrier will be that the companies making these will be making 4 a year instead of however many it is, 50 a year. So even fewer actually. So how will we make it work for them?
I won't make a lot of friends, but at some point we have to discuss how much money in manufacturers make and how much it will be okay for them to cut on their revenues, but actually not by to jeopardize the viability of the manufacturer. But there is a huge gap between having enough money to make your company run and rewarding your actioners with a lot of money at the end of the month. So this is a whole other question of the economical model we are in, and how do we treat actually our healthcare products and our healthcare industry into this capitalistic economy. But it's a whole other problem. Maybe we could imagine that if we reuse the dialyzers more than 40 times, we can make the price of the dialyzer a little bit more, because there is also the question of responsibility that goes with it. And the question is, what also there is the ClearFlux machine. Is there a possibility with the manufacturers of the ClearFlux to have like a cooperation with the manufacturers? It has been done. It's still done in some countries, and we still have Baxter and Fresenius in and others in South America and in the US. But this is also the shift of paradigm we are into. We need to consider other things that the only profitability of the system, and I think this is this will be a whole other fight.
Yeah, we could have another meeting about that. But I guess another way of putting the question would be, what barriers can the manufacturers put to this system, to this process where we want to get the regulation changed? So, for example, if they are very, very slow to allow things to be labeled as reuse, or to provide the information that's needed for certification and things like that, you know, can we anticipate that and avoid it? Do we need a different manufacturer to come in from the side who hasn't got that motivation? Or yeah, it'd be good to have any ideas.
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
Could we threaten just to import from America? Our dialyzers?
No, because in the UK I don't know, but in the EU actually we need the CE marking, and the CE marking it's a process that is done by the manufacturer, so we need them. But because the EU regulation also, I've been discussing a lot with specialists of EU law regarding the healthcare industry, and what they say is that actually the EU regulation of course protects the patient and the safety of the patient, but it's also a little bit done to protect the interest of the manufacturer. So we have a nod also here, and there is just one thing maybe in the MDR that we could actually use at our profit, is that today when manufacturers decide to put a device on the market and label it single use, actually it just decides that it's okay and he wants it to be single use. But in an ideal world, the manufacturer would have to prove and to give us the arguments of why actually it is single use. If the performance of the dialyzers actually drop significantly after one use and make the patient in jeopardy, okay, no problem. We all agree that what we need is to be able to take care of our patient in the best manner possible. But if we can demonstrate that after 20 use it's still okay and we are still in the best care possible, actually the legislation could forbid the manufacturers to put a single-use label on their dialyzers. And this is kind of something we can find in the MDR, that the buyer can ask from the manufacturer the arguments why he labeled his device single-use, but it's never done actually, because we have a lot of pressure to quickly choose and buy and stuff, etc. So we have also those kind of issues. Sorry for the long answer.
No. It's amazing, because we need these enthusiastic answers to keep going. So just last question to Abass, and coming back to what worries us all, that is the environmental impact, Abass. So can you tell us about the break-even point where the single-use and reusable have the same environmental impact? Talking about there's all this data, LCA, that you have shown to us.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll let you start, Abass. I will share the.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, we've already done that, and it's down in the appendix. So where we have the break-even point. So we can see that it's around about 16 REUs that we have same results from the environmental point of view. So yeah, if the dialyzer is reused about 16 times, then it's quite the same as reusing as a single-use dialyzer. So that's the point we have a break even. And then if we go to 20 reuse, then we start having gain when we do 20 reuse by clear flux. So what's the answer to that?
Yeah, it's perfect. So congratulations again, Hafsah and Abass, for this brilliant presentation. So we are now just arriving to the end of this talk, and just a quick reminder that Lucy has kindly put it in the chat for those dialysis units here in UK that still don't have a sustainability champion. Please join us. You have here the link and all the information of how to do it, and we would really appreciate if you join our network and join us just to help us to become more sustainable in kidney care. So it's been lovely to have you both, and just to increase our knowledge in this clear flux system of reusing dialyzers. So thank you very much for your time. And to everybody who has joined this session, as always. So thank you very much for being here. And we will see you in a month's time again with another session that is yet to be programmed. Okay, so bye everybody, and thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the
very
invite.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.